to start off with some missional stories, kind of from context. We're delighted that Michael Garner's here from St. Albans in Ottawa, and he is sharing Reigniting a Missional Imagination in a Parish Church. So great to have you with us, Michael.
Thanks, Lisa. And thank you to the organizers for the invitation to speak with you all this evening, especially Andrew Stevens Rennie, who wrote me last year to invite me and said, "This is a gathering place for folks who have experienced an unsettling sense of call, but don't know where to go next." Upon reading that, I was like, giddy up. My life is full of unsettling senses of call. For any of you who have known me for more than the last 2 minutes, you're well likely aware of my unsettling sense of call that resulted in me becoming an ordained Anglican priest. Prior to this vocational setting, I was an infectious disease epidemiologist who was really good at his job and who loved and still loves science. Yet, we serve a God with a wicked sense of humor. My current role is as the Rector of St. Albans in Ottawa. It is a small church that sits in the shadow of Parliament Hill. The parish was established in 1867 as the parish serving the Anglican riffraff of mid-19th century Ottawa and was rebooted as a parish in the summer of 2011. Strangely, I was the first warden of that new congregation. God's wicked sense of humor indeed. St. Albans was my parish home until I left in 2018 as I was in the midst of my MDiv training. In 2022, my bishop sent me back to St. Albans. The previous incumbent had resigned abruptly, and the parish was in crisis. As part of one's discernment for the Anglican priesthood, at least in the Diocese of Ottawa, you need to be endorsed by your home parish with the main question: would you be willing to have this person as your priest? Let's just say when St. Albans sent me off, they didn't think their answer to that question was going to come back and bite them so quickly. So be careful what you wish for. So in August of 2022, when I arrived, the parish was looking at a $70,000 deficit, a significant decline in giving and in attendance for a myriad of reasons. But all of that is to paint the context for the mission that emerged and the imagination needed. I think it's fair to say that things were desperate, and the parish was more focused on restoring what was, restoring some stability than looking to the future, particularly not looking to new frontiers of mission. Especially not mission as I understand it, as something you do because you are acting in the manner of Jesus, not because you want people to come to your church. So, how did we reignite the missional imagination of St. Albans? Well, we started praying. We did a variety of things in those first months, which did include prayers to the gods of accounting as we redid the books from the past 2 years, which is a different sort of prayer. But in all seriousness, we started doing morning prayer. We did 30 weeks of morning prayer following a 30-day cycle of the Book of Psalms. So together as a parish, we gathered midweek and prayed through the Book of Psalms. For me, the amazing thing about praying through Psalms in order is the structure, how it moves from lament to praise. This was important for the congregation to recognize the voice of lament in those ancient words, and then to take that journey with the book as lament turns more and more into praise. Interestingly, I did this exercise at the first parish I was rector at of in 2019, fresh off ordination. And the result of that praying was the discernment that the parish should close. So pray through the book of Psalms with great caution. In addition to praying through the book of Psalms, we started doing parish retreats, starting on Saturday mornings every quarter, exercising our muscle to listen corporately. For our second retreat, we set up a labyrinth in the nave of the church, a remarkable 50 by 50-foot portable labyrinth. The owner of that labyrinth led us in some teaching about walking meditation and listening, and then we practiced it, listening as individuals together. The other really important prayer initiative we took on was the reformation of parish council. This was a largely dysfunctional body when I arrived, so I politely asked the members to resign and asked the actual leaders of the congregation to consider joining. To the members, I sent this vision, and I quote, the St. Albans Parish Council is first and foremost a consultative body called together to consult with God and with each other so as to discern, insofar it is humanly possible to do so, God's will and leading for St. Albans. St. Albans Parish Council is a place of grace, forgiveness, prayer, wisdom, and hope. It is a community that serves as an example of how we hope the broader congregation of St. Albans will interrelate and care for each other. The parish council looks up to God, looks out to the world, looks forward faithfully, and looks after others. It thinks, prays, wrestles, argues, laughs, and cries. And it does it all with integrity and humility. It makes mistakes, falls short, struggles with pain, and it does all of this with the same grace with which it celebrates success and the joyful moments of church life. End quote. I also restructured the meetings. We only meet 6 times per year. We gather at 6 p.m. for a meal that I prepared, and at 6:45 we move to a period of prayer. This is at least 30 minutes and is a mix of silence and prayer aloud. But most importantly, it is a time for people to share what they have heard and discerned for St. Albans since the last meeting. It is not a hope, but an expectation that each member is praying for the parish throughout the week, and ideally at least once a day. Any congregation member is eligible to join, but you had better plan on praying. By 7:15, we're usually easing into business and finishing by 8:45 and moving to a final time of prayer. And all of those things are good. But as I've aged, I've become less convinced of sitting still and praying, of waiting and listening, thinking that a vision arrives in the midst of that sitting. I mean, it can, and it has in my life. As a 19-year-old, I prayed for a year every Friday morning at 5:30 a.m. with 4 other young people. And at the end of that year, we clearly knew we needed to plant a church. Where and how? We did, and that place is still around. So praying and listening can yield true vision. Although I'm not sure many of us have the fortitude to pray in that way. I sure don't anymore. What actually ignited the missional imagination of St. Albans was not the prayerful listening. Did it prep the soil? Absolutely. But it was undertaking something I call action listening that really moved things forward. Not active listening. Active listening is when you not only hear what someone is saying, but also attune to their thoughts and feelings. Rather, action listening is that we act and we hear. We don't sit and wait, we move, even with the little we hear, even with the smallest spark of an idea. And it doesn't matter if those first steps are right or whatever that means, but it is about breaking inertia and acting and listening. We keep listening and we keep moving. We cannot be, as the church, scared to move and make mistakes. It is so rare that we receive as a group a vision from God after a time of prayer. And if we do, it's even rarer that it yields anything. But action listening means that as we move, we constantly make micro adjustments as our own intellect and the Holy Spirit reveal things to us. It is this practice of action listening that led to the food program that Andrew wanted me to talk about. In the fall of 2022, I also started as a chaplain at the University of Ottawa. I had no idea what that meant. But given University of Ottawa is in my parish boundaries, it seemed like a good place to start. Chaplaincy at University of Ottawa is underdeveloped, to put it kindly, and that's a story for another time. But needless to say, my weekly office hours saw me playing bridge on my phone or writing a sermon. Student interaction was extremely rare. But at the end of that academic year, students started emerging, not to talk, but to see if I had food to offer them. As a result, I spent the summer of 2023 exploring and connecting with the food support on campus. I found the student-funded and run food bank was overrun, experiencing a 500% increase over the previous year, and running out of food by Wednesday after receiving their stock on Monday. So we started a food pantry in the chaplaincy office, stocking it with non-perishables and beginning to meet some of the need. One Friday night, we had 43 students show up looking for food. It was our first real action. Our prayer didn't reveal that as an action. It was, there's students there in need. How can we help meet that need and respond to them in the manner of Jesus? And because I'm a University of Ottawa alumni, I decided for kicks, to show up to the alumni AGM in the fall of 2023 and make people aware of the food security situation on campus. The meeting got to the question and answer period at the end, and I got up and told the story of this small action. After my short homily, the crowd was silent. Ugh, I had overstepped my bounds. And then they started clapping, not because I'm any sort of gifted orator, but because they felt the scope of the crisis on campus and the urgency to act. The Alumni Association, after that talk, gave me $10,000 to invest in things we needed to support our food work on campus. Who knew? Emboldened, I kept talking to whoever would listen. I ended up in a meeting with the heads of residences on campus, and we were talking about the food issues first-year students face. By the end of that conversation, she asked if St. Albans might be willing to come into one of the residents with greatest needs, whose students do not have a meal plan, and offer a meal or two over the winter semester. You want my church to come into your residence and serve students. Great. So we said, let's do a pilot of 3 meals over the winter and see how that goes. She agreed and said they would do all the promotion. They agreed to email every student in all the residences about the meal. Promotion, problems solved. So in the winter of 2024, the meal at Friel was born. In my wildest dreams, did I think St. Albans would be invited into University of Ottawa residence to do a program for students? No. Certainly, this was not part of a goal or part of a grand plan, but the result of action listening, acting and listening in tandem. We got through those pilot 3 meals, and the parish's experience was positive. The university was happy, as were the students. We've continued the meals, moving to 6 times a semester in the fall of 2024, serving between 230 and 250 students per meal. The university is using the meals as part of a social connecting pilot in the residences. They find that in the residences that have no meal plan and are less communal, that the mental health outcomes are worse. So we're seeing if the Friel residents fare differently. And who knows? Perhaps it is ironic that this somewhat large meal program is being run by the one Anglican church in Ottawa that does not have a kitchen. We cook in our houses and apartments and figure it out. Day of, we set up a makeshift kitchen of the lobby of Friel and serve our food. And the food is good, but it's almost not as good as the conversations with students who are desperately isolated, and especially when they realize that there are people in their neighborhood who cares for them, but want nothing from them in exchange. St. Albans does these meals to serve. But action listening isn't just listening to God. It's listening to your parish, it's listening to your partners, and it's listening especially to the people you serve. We, in our wisdom, had figured on about a 50-50 vegetarian to meat entree split. But the students were asking for meat in over 90% of the meals. So we made more meat. Last semester, we made sure to have halal and kosher options. The most powerful moments I've had at the meal is when a Muslim student asks if the food is halal, and we can say yes. One student asked me, why is the church choosing to care about Muslim student dietary needs? Because you are the neighbor of our church, and we want you to know that we see you and respect who you are. We don't do this for the purpose of evangelism or to get students to come to St. Albans. As far as I know, we have not had any of the Meal at Friel participants show up on a Sunday morning. We have lots of students who come to church, but the Friel students know who we are, why we do the work, and when we arrive to do a meal, they welcome us as friends into their space. We are building relationships and taking care of the other. None of what happened was the goal. The only goal was to act and respond to the Holy Spirit. Early on in our winter 2024 pilots, the student union invited us to talk about what we were doing. They wanted to know more. The executive director of the student union was quite hostile, opening our conversation with, I don't like priests or religion. Fair enough, I don't really either. But fast forward a year later, that same executive director is looking for ways that we can be a partner with the student union in addressing food security on campus. And we are partners now in a variety of advocacy events on campus, raising the consciousness of the broader university of this significant issue. Why? Because the actions of St. Albans are good. They bear the fruit of the Spirit in the midst of campus, and that fruit is good. The elected president of the student union, as part of their work on campus with the food bank, wants to start offering meals in the manner of the St. Albans meal at Friel. And they see St. Albans as a partner and want to partner with us in the student union building to figure out how to feed more students and to really work on social connecting amongst students. Why? Because they know us by the fruit of our action. We have no claim to do anything on campus, and any result is the result of action listening and God's outrageousness. So we keep looking and listening for opportunities. And we don't see any of this as the end goal. I honestly have no clue where we're going. On Saturday, in 2 days, we're taking the morning to listen as a parish. One of our parishioners will lead us in a morning of contemplation and discussion, where we'll seek to put aside what is and our own desires and discern together what the Spirit is leading us to. We're at a place to do this as a congregation because we trust each other. That trust has been built up over the last 2.5 years because of corporate prayer, for sure. But it is in acting together, trying our best with the little knowledge we have, the little resource we have to do something. My job in the next year is to make it less and less about me. This work is about the congregation of St. Albans, continuing to listen and act. My hope is for the day in the future when the person at St. Albans has no idea who I am. I'm long gone, but they know who the congregation is. They know their bold missional action and their action listening. My favorite quote is that the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade we shall never sit. I guess that's my goal. So as we move into the future, as each of you move into the future, as we emerge from our times of listening, we may emerge with clarity, and thanks be to God. We may emerge quite more likely into an opaque fog, but we will take the little bit of what we hear, the little bit of what we discern, and keep acting. Thank you.